Admiral Kexthul looked at the blue and green planet on his screen. Earth was the third planet from a yellow star that humans called Sol. For 3 years, his people had been watching this new species from far away. The Zaltharian hegemony was very good at studying other races before making contact. The reports from his scouts were simple. Humans had just learned how to travel faster than light. They were building ships and moving beyond their home world. Most new species were easy to deal with. A show of force, some threats, and they would join the hegemony peacefully. "Admiral," said Commander Velthur from his position at the tactical station, "our advanced scouts report that human ships are primitive. Their technology appears to be at least 200 cycles behind our own." Kexthul nodded slowly. His ship, the Void Piercer, was one of 12 vessels in his fleet. Each ship was a work of art. The hulls were made of crystal that could bend light around them. Their weapons could tear holes in space itself. No species had ever stood against them for more than a few minutes. "What do we know about their military?" the Admiral asked. "Very little, sir. They appear to have no unified planetary defense. Many different nations control different parts of their world. Our translators have identified over 200 separate languages. They seem to fight among themselves quite often." This was good news. Divided species were always easier to conquer. The hegemony had done this many times before. Show up with superior ships, demand surrender, and most races would see reason. Those that did not learn quickly. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human vessels near their outer planets." "Put it on screen," Kexthul ordered. The face that appeared was clearly human. The being had short brown hair and dark eyes. His skin was pale, and he wore what looked like a simple uniform. Behind him, other humans moved around what appeared to be a ship's bridge. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship. Iron Wolf, you have entered human space without permission. State your business here." Kexthul was amused. This primitive creature was making demands of him. The Admiral had destroyed entire fleets. His reputation stretched across a dozen star systems. Yet this human spoke as if he had some kind of authority. "I am Admiral Kexthul of the Zaltharian hegemony. You will surrender your vessels immediately and prepare your world for peaceful integration into our empire. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." The human called Morrison seemed to think about this for a moment. He turned to speak with others on his ship, but the audio was cut off. After a few seconds, he looked back at the screen. "Admiral, I'm going to give you one chance to leave our system peacefully. Turn your ships around and go home." "You don't want to do this?" Several officers on the Zaltharian bridge laughed. The idea that these primitives could threaten them was ridiculous. Their ships looked like metal boxes with engines stuck on the back. No elegance, no style, no advanced technology that they could detect. "You have 1 standard hour to comply," Kexthul said. "After that time, we will begin destroying your ships one by one until you see reason." The transmission ended. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. The human ships were spread out near the large gas giant they called Jupiter. There were only 5 of them compared to his 12 vessels. The largest human ship was barely half the size of the Void Piercer. "Analysis?" he asked his science officer. "Their ships appear to be built for function rather than efficiency, sir. Heavy armor plating, multiple weapon ports, and what looks like redundant systems throughout. Very crude design philosophy. Weapons? Kinetic projectiles and primitive. Energy weapons. Nothing that should penetrate our barriers." Kexthul smiled. This would be over quickly. Perhaps these humans would even make good workers once they understood their place in the galaxy. Their crude ships might be useful for mining operations or cargo transport. On the human ship Iron Wolf, Captain Morrison turned away from the communications console. His bridge crew looked tense, but not afraid. These were people who had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Lisa, what do you make of their ships?" he asked his second-in-command. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes had been studying the alien vessels through their sensors. "Beautiful design, Captain. Very advanced. But they're built like exploration ships, not warships. Thin hulls, minimal armor, weapons that look designed for precision rather than destruction. Think they've ever been in a real fight?" "Hard to say, sir. But if I had to guess, I'd say no. Their formations are too perfect, too clean. Real combat is messy." Morrison nodded. He had served in the Mars Rebellion and the asteroid mining wars. He knew what real fighting looked like. These aliens might have better technology, but they clearly didn't understand what they were dealing with. "Ryan, how are our systems?" he called to his engineer. "All green, Captain. Weapons are charged, armor is deployed, and all backup systems are online. The Iron Wolf is ready for whatever they want to throw at us." Morrison looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was taking its first steps into a larger galaxy. Today would determine whether those steps would be taken as equals or as slaves. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have made contact with hostile alien forces. Request immediate backup, but inform them that we will engage if necessary." The next hour would change everything. Neither species truly understood what they were about to face. The Zalfirians saw primitive ships and assumed an easy victory. The humans saw advanced technology and prepared for the fight of their lives. Both sides were about to learn something new about the galaxy. Admiral Kex Thul studied the human ships through his tactical display. The lead vessel, the Iron Wolf, looked like something built by children playing with metal scraps. Its hull was thick and angular, covered in what appeared to be layers of crude armor plating. Weapon ports dotted its surface like scars on an old warrior's face. "Look at this design," he said to Commander Velther. "These beings have no understanding of proper engineering. Their ships are ugly, inefficient, and wasteful." The commander nodded in agreement. Zalfirian ships were works of art, smooth crystal hulls that reflected starlight like jewels, weapons that were hidden inside the structure until needed. Everything was clean, elegant, and efficient. These human ships looked like floating junkyards. "Perhaps they are not military vessels at all," suggested the science officer. "They could be mining ships or construction equipment that has been modified for combat." This made sense to Kex Thul. The humans were a young species. They probably did not have time to build proper warships. Instead, they had taken whatever ships they had and bolted weapons onto them. It was a desperate move by a desperate people. On the Iron Wolf, Captain Morrison walked around his bridge, checking on his crew. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency. Every system had been designed and tested through decades of human conflict. Nothing was there for show. Everything had a purpose. "Nicole, status on weapon systems?" he asked his weapons officer. "All batteries ready, Captain. Railguns are charged, missile tubes are loaded, and plasma cannons are at full power. We have enough ammunition for a sustained fight." Chief Engineer Ryan Park looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm reading some interesting energy signatures from those alien ships. Their power systems are very advanced, but they seem to be putting most of their energy into shields and propulsion. What about weapons? That's the strange part, sir. Their weapon systems don't seem designed for heavy combat. They look more like precision tools. Very advanced, but not built for destroying other ships." Morrison frowned. That was unusual. In human military thinking, if you were going to build a weapon, you made sure it could destroy whatever you pointed it at. These aliens seemed to have a different philosophy. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes was monitoring the alien communications. The translation software had been working overtime to understand their language. What she heard made her worried. "Captain, I'm picking up their internal chatter. They're laughing at us." "Laughing?" "Yes, sir. They think our ships are primitive. One of them just called the Iron Wolf a flying scrapyard. They don't seem to understand what they're looking at." Morrison almost smiled at that. The Iron Wolf might not be pretty, but it was built for one thing: winning fights. Every piece of armor had been tested against real weapons. Every system had backup systems, and those backup systems had backups of their own. The Zaltharians had clearly never fought anyone who could fight back. On the Void Piercer, the tactical officer was running scans of the human vessels. The results confused him. The ships were built with massive redundancy. Triple hulls, multiple power systems, weapons scattered throughout the structure instead of concentrated in specific areas. "Admiral, these ships are very strange. They appear to be designed to keep fighting even after taking severe damage." "Explain." "Well, sir, look at this cross-section. If we destroy their main weapons, they have secondary weapons. If we disable their engines, they have backup engines. If we breach their hull, they have multiple compartments that can be sealed off." Kexthil looked at the display with growing confusion. This kind of design made no sense. Why would you build a ship expecting it to be damaged? Zaltharian ships were designed to avoid damage entirely through superior technology and tactics. "Perhaps they are simply afraid," he said finally. "Young species often over-engineer their first ships due to paranoia." But even as he said it, something bothered him. The human formations were not the confused movements of a frightened fleet. They moved with purpose and discipline. Their communications were calm and professional. These did not seem like people who were afraid. Captain Morrison received a report from his sensor operator. "Captain, the alien ships are moving into attack formation. Standard pattern. Looks like they plan to disable us rather than destroy us. They want to capture us?" "Seems that way, sir. Their weapon positioning suggests they're planning precision strikes against our engines and weapons." Morrison thought about this. It was a reasonable strategy if he were fighting normal ships. Disable the enemy, hoard them, and take them prisoner. Very civilized. Very clean. The problem was that human ships were not designed to be disabled easily. Every critical system was protected by layers of armor and redundancy. You could not simply shoot out an engine or weapons array and expect the ship to surrender. "All hands, this is the captain," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to engage hostile alien forces. These beings have demanded our surrender and threatened to destroy Earth if we resist. I want everyone to remember what we're fighting for. Not just our lives, but the future of humanity itself." The crew responded with quiet determination. They had trained for this moment. Every drill, every exercise, every lesson had been preparing them for the day when humanity would have to prove itself to the Galaxy. Engineer Ryan Park ran one final check on all systems. The fusion reactors were running at optimal levels. Armor plating had been charged with defensive fields. Weapons were ready to fire at a moment's notice. The Iron Wolf was as ready as it could be. The Zaltharians finished their approach. Their ships moved in perfect formation, like dancers performing a carefully choreographed routine. It was beautiful to watch, but Captain Morrison noticed something important. They were fighting like they had never been hurt before. "Lisa, send a message to the other human ships. Tell them to remember their training. Don't try to match their technology. Use what we're good at." "What are we good at, sir?" Morrison looked at the approaching alien fleet. 12 beautiful advanced ships against 5 crude human vessels. On paper, It should not even be a contest. We're good at being hard to kill, he said. And we're very good at killing things that try to kill us. The hour was almost up. Soon, the shooting would start, and the galaxy would learn something new about the species called humanity. The Zaltharian fleet moved into perfect attack formation. Each ship took its assigned position with mathematical precision. Admiral Kexthul watched with satisfaction as his vessels formed a sphere around the human ships. It was a classic encirclement, maneuver that had worked against dozens of other species. All ships report ready for combat operations, Commander Velther announced. Energy weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked onto human vessels. The Admiral opened a communication channel to the human fleet. He wanted to give them one final chance to surrender. It was important to follow proper protocol, even when dealing with primitives. Human vessels, this is your final warning. Surrender immediately or face the full might of Zaltharian technology. Your ships will be destroyed and your world will be conquered. This is your last opportunity to save your species. Captain Morrison appeared on the screen again. His face was calm, showing no fear or anger. Behind him, his crew continued their work with quiet efficiency. The Admiral found this strange. Most species showed panic or desperation at this point. Admiral Kexthul, Morrison said slowly, I'm going to tell you something important, and I want you to listen carefully. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave this system. This is your only warning. The bridge of the Void Piercer fell silent, and several officers began to laugh. The idea that these primitive humans could threaten the mighty Zaltharian fleet was absurd. Their crude ships barely qualified as military vessels. You dare threaten us? Kexthul asked, his voice filled with amusement. Your ships are nothing more than metal boxes with weapons bolted onto them. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. What could you possibly do to us? Morrison's expression did not change. You'll find out in 25 seconds if you don't leave. The Admiral ended the communication with a gesture of dismissal. He turned to his tactical officer. Begin the attack. Target their engines and weapon systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed. They will make better examples if they are still alive. On the Iron Wolf, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes was monitoring the alien ship's movements. Their formation was textbook perfect. Every ship knew exactly where it was supposed to be. Their weapons were charging in synchronized patterns. It was the kind of coordination that came from years of training against opponents who could not fight back. Captain, they're powering up their weapons, she reported. Energy signatures suggest directed plasma beams designed for precision targeting. Understood, Morrison replied. He turned to his weapons officer. Nicole, are you ready? Nicole Grant checked her displays one final time. Every weapon system on the Iron Wolf was functioning perfectly. The railguns were charged and ready to fire. Missile tubes were loaded with the most advanced warheads humanity had ever built. Plasma cannons were generating enough energy to melt. Through a small moon. All weapons ready, Captain. We can fire on your command. Chief Engineer Ryan Park spoke up from his station. Captain, I'm reading their power distribution. They're putting most of their energy into precision weapons and defensive shields. Very little into what we would call heavy artillery. This confirmed Morrison's suspicions. These aliens had never fought anyone who could fight back. They were used to quick, clean victories against species that could not match their technology. They had no experience with the kind of brutal, sustained combat that humans had perfected over thousands of years. The countdown timer on Morrison's screen showed 10 seconds remaining. All human vessels. This is Morrison. Remember your training. Don't try to match their speed or precision. Hit them hard and keep hitting them. Show them what human ships can really do. On the Zaltharian flagship, Commander Velther was puzzled by something he was seeing on his sensors. "Admiral, the human ships are not moving to defensive positions. They're maintaining their current formation. Perhaps they have accepted their fate," Kexthul suggested. "Begin firing." The Zaltharian ships opened fire with beautiful streams of directed energy. Bright blue beams lanced through space toward the human vessels. The beams were precise and controlled, designed to disable specific systems without causing unnecessary destruction. The energy beams struck the Iron Wolf's hull and scattered harmlessly across its surface. The ship's armor had been designed to absorb and disperse energy attacks. Layers of reactive plating and defensive fields turned the precision weapons into nothing more than light shows. "Direct hits on the lead human vessel," the tactical officer reported, "but sir, they show no signs of damage." Admiral Kexthul stared at his display in confusion. Their weapons should have disabled the human ship's engines at minimum. Instead, the crude vessel continued on its course as if nothing had happened. "Increase power to weapons," he ordered. "Target all batteries on that lead ship." More energy. Beams struck the Iron Wolf. The ship's hull glowed briefly where the weapons hit, but the armor held. Internal systems continued to function normally. The humans had learned long ago that if you were going to fight, you needed to be able to take. A hit and keep fighting got Captain Morrison watched the alien attack with professional interest. Their weapons were very advanced, but they were designed for fighting opponents who used similar technology. Against human armor, which was built to stop kinetic projectiles and explosive warheads, energy weapons were much less effective. "No. Damage to report, Captain," Ryan Park announced. "Armor is holding perfectly. All systems are green." "Time to respond," Morrison said calmly. "Nicole, show them what our ships can really do." All batteries open fire. The Iron Wolf revealed its true nature. Gun ports opened along its hull like a predator showing its teeth. Railguns that had been hidden beneath armor plating extended and began to charge. Missile tubes opened and prepared to launch their deadly cargo dot, but the Zaltharians were not ready for what came next. The first railgun fired with a sound like thunder. The projectile, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. It struck the Zaltharian vessel stars, graced with the force of a small asteroid. The elegant crystal hull shattered like glass. The ship's beautiful design, which had been optimized for efficiency and elegance, could not withstand the brutal reality of human military engineering. In an instant, the star's grace went from a work of art to an expanding field of debris. "Impossible," Admiral Kexthul whispered as he watched one of his finest ships simply cease to exist. But the Iron Wolf was just getting started. More railguns fired, each shot precisely targeted at a different Zaltharian vessel. Missiles launched in swarms, their guidance systems locked onto alien ships. Plasma cannons added their own devastating contribution to the barrage. The beautiful Zaltharian formation fell apart as ships desperately tried to avoid the storm of projectiles coming their way. Their precision and coordination meant nothing when faced with weapons designed for one purpose: complete destruction of the enemy. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Kexthul shouted into his communicator, but it was too late. The humans had shown their hand, and the Zaltharians finally understood what they were really fighting. The battle became a nightmare for the Zaltharian fleet. Their perfect formations crumbled as human weapons tore through their ranks. Admiral Kexthul watched in horror as another of his ships, the Crystal Dawn, took a direct hit from a human railgun and exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his tactical officer. "Our intelligence reports said they were primitive." Commander Velther was frantically trying to coordinate the remaining ships. "Sir, their weapons are unlike anything we've encountered. These projectiles are moving at impossible speeds. Our shields cannot deflect solid matter traveling that fast." The Zaltharians had built their entire military philosophy around energy weapons and defensive barriers. Their shields could turn aside plasma beams and laser attacks with ease. But the humans were firing chunks of metal accelerated to relativistic speeds. The kinetic energy was so massive that it simply punched through their defenses like they were made of paper. On the Iron Wolf, Captain Morrison watched the enemy fleet. Scatter. Nicole, target the ship on the left flank. The one trying to get behind us. Target acquired, Captain. Railgun ready to fire. Fire. The weapon discharged with its characteristic thunder. The projectile crossed space in the blink of an eye and struck the Zaltharian ship Void Singer amidships. The vessel's elegant hull cracked like an eggshell. Atmosphere and debris streamed out into space as the ship began to break apart. Chief Engineer Ryan Park was monitoring the ship's systems during combat. Every weapon that fired was immediately reloaded. Backup power systems kicked in automatically to maintain maximum firepower. The Iron Wolf had been designed to keep fighting even if half its systems were destroyed. Captain, all weapons are cycling normally. Armor is holding at 100%. We can maintain this rate of fire for hours if necessary. This was the difference between human and Zaltharian military thinking. The aliens built beautiful ships designed to win quick, clean victories. Humans built ugly ships designed to survive and keep fighting no matter what happened to them. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes was tracking the remaining alien vessels. Captain, they're trying to regroup. Looks like they're forming a new attack pattern. Morrison nodded. The Zaltharians were learning, but it might be too late. They had lost 4 ships already, and the humans had barely taken any damage. The aliens' precision weapons were useless against human armor, while human weapons were devastating against the delicate Zaltharian hulls. Admiral Kexthal was beginning to understand the terrible mistake he had made. These were not primitive beings with crude technology. They were warriors who had spent their entire history perfecting the art of destruction. Every human ship was a weapon of war, disguised as a simple vessel. Sir, we're receiving damage reports. From all remaining ships, his communications officer announced. The Stellar Wind has lost main power. The Night's Edge is reporting hull breaches on multiple decks. The Dawnbreaker's weapon systems are offline. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. 8 ships remained from his original 12. The humans still had all 5 of their vessels, and none of them showed significant damage. This was not going according to plan. Admiral, Commander Velther said urgently, I recommend we withdraw immediately. We cannot win this engagement. Withdraw? Kexthal could barely believe what he was hearing. The Zaltharian hegemony had never retreated from battle. They had never needed to. We have superior technology. We have more ships. But, sir, look at the results. Their weapons are destroying us, while ours barely scratch their armor. These beings have built their ships specifically for warfare. Real warfare, not the police actions we're used to. Another human missile salvo struck the Eternal Light. The Zaltharian ship's crystal hull cracked under the impact, and secondary explosions began tearing through its interior. The vessel listed to one side as its gravity generators failed. Captain. Morrison opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His face appeared on Admiral Kexthal's screen, calm and professional, despite the battle raging around them. Admiral, I'm giving you one more chance to leave. Take your remaining ships and go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humans are not as primitive as you thought. Kexthal stared at the human captain. This being showed no anger, no hatred, just a cold determination to protect his people. It was terrifying in its simplicity. You cannot defeat the entire hegemony, the Admiral said desperately. We have thousands of ships, millions of warriors. Morrison's expression did not change. Then you'd better bring more ships next time. Because these 5 human vessels just destroyed half your fleet, and we're not even trying hard yet. The human captain was right. The Iron Wolf and its companions were fighting with mechanical precision, but there was something held in reserve. Kekthul could sense it. These ships could do much worse if they needed to. Sir, the tactical officer called out, the humans are preparing to fire again. All their weapons are charged and targeting our remaining vessels. Admiral Kekthul faced the hardest decision of his military career. He could continue fighting and likely lose every ship in his fleet, or he could retreat and face the shame of defeat. But if he died here, no one would be left to warn the hegemony about what humanity really was. All ships, he announced over. The fleet communication channel. Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. Sir? Commander Velther asked in surprise. We have learned something important here today, Kekthul said quietly. These humans are not victims waiting to be conquered. They are predators who have been preparing for this moment their entire existence. The remaining Zaltharian ships began charging their faster-than-light drives. It would take several minutes to build up enough energy to escape the system. Several minutes during which the humans could destroy them all if they chose to. But the human ships held their fire. They maintained their positions, weapons ready, but did not attack the retreating aliens. Captain Morrison understood something that Admiral Kekthul was only beginning to grasp. Dead messengers could not carry warnings. The surviving Zaltharian ships vanished into hyperspace one by one, carrying with them news that would change the galaxy forever. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had announced its presence in the most direct way possible. They had won their first interstellar war in less than 20 minutes. The battle was over in 17 minutes. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Iron Wolf, looking out at the debris field that had once been his Zaltharian fleet. Twisted metal and crystal fragments drifted through space, catching starlight like deadly confetti. Damage report. He ordered. Chief Engineer Ryan Park checked his systems one final time. Minor scoring on the outer hull armor, Captain. No penetration. All weapons systems functioning normally. We're ready to fight again, if needed. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes was monitoring long-range sensors. Captain, the 3 surviving alien ships have jumped faster than light speed. They're gone, Morrison nodded. He had deliberately let them escape. Dead enemies could not carry messages, and it was important that the galaxy learned what had happened here today. Humanity needed the other species to understand that Earth was not an easy target. Communications, patch me through to the other ships in our fleet. Channel open, sir. All vessels, this is Morrison. Excellent work today. Return to patrol formation and prepare for possible reinforcements. I doubt they'll be back soon, but we need to be ready. The other human captains acknowledged the order. The small fleet reformed its patrol pattern around the Jupiter mining stations, watching for any sign of alien return. But Morrison suspected it would be a long time before the Zaltharians tried again. On the bridge of the Void Piercer, Admiral Kekthul sat in his command chair, staring at the star chart. His fleet had suffered 75% casualties in less than 20 minutes. It was the worst military disaster in Zaltharian history. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving priority signals from High Command. They want a full report on the engagement. Kekthul closed his eyes. How could he explain this to his superiors? How could he tell them that a species they had dismissed as primitive had just destroyed 9 advanced warships with weapons that seemed to come from another era of warfare? Commander Velther, he said finally, prepare a complete battle analysis. Include all sensor data, weapon signatures, and tactical observations. The High Command needs to understand exactly what we faced. Yes, sir? Admiral, What should I tell them about the human military capability? Kex Thol thought about Captain Narson's calm face, about the brutal efficiency of human weapons, about ships built like flying fortresses. Tell them that we made a fundamental error in our intelligence gathering. We assumed that primitive technology meant primitive warfare. We were wrong. The message that Admiral Kex Thul sent back to Zaltharian space was brief but devastating. In careful military language, he explained how a small human fleet had defeated a superior force using weapons and tactics that the hegemony had never encountered. The report spread quickly through Zaltharian command structure. Military planners who had been preparing invasion fleets suddenly found themselves reconsidering their strategies. The humans had not won through superior technology, but through superior understanding of warfare itself. Within days, the news had spread beyond Zaltharian space. Other species in the galaxy took notice of the battle near Jupiter. Trade confederations and military alliances began discussing the implications of humanity's entrance onto the galactic stage. Captain Morrison received a communication from Earth Command 3 hours after the battle. Admiral Sarah Peterson appeared on his screen, her expression serious but proud. Captain, we've been monitoring the engagement through your transmission feeds. Outstanding work. The Security Council wants a full debrief when you return to Earth. Yes. Admiral, what are our orders regarding future alien contact? Maintain your patrol pattern. Intelligence suggests that word of this battle is spreading rapidly through alien communication networks. We expect more contact soon, but hopefully more diplomatic in nature. Morrison understood. The galaxy now knew that humanity could fight. The next contacts would likely be from species wanting to establish trade relationships or military alliances, rather than those seeking to conquer Earth. Over the following weeks, the predictions proved correct. Ships from a dozen different species approached human space, all broadcasting peaceful intentions. The Draxi Merchant Guild wanted to establish trade routes. The Kellan Republic offered a mutual defense pact. Even the proud Theran Empire sent ambassadors to negotiate territorial boundaries. All of them had heard the same story. A small human fleet had destroyed most of the Zaltharian attack force in minutes. The details varied depending on who was telling the story, but the message was always the same. Humans were dangerous. Admiral Kex Thul eventually returned to Zaltharian space, where he faced a military tribunal. But instead of being punished for his defeat, he was promoted to head of intelligence operations. His superiors wanted him to study humanity and understand how such a young species had become so effective at warfare. His final report on human military capabilities became required reading at every Zaltharian military academy. The key passage was simple but profound. We assumed that their crude-looking ships indicated primitive technology. We failed to understand humans do not build ships for beauty or efficiency. They build them for one purpose: to survive combat and destroy enemies. Every human vessel is a weapon of war, because for humans, peace is something that must be constantly defended. The Zaltharian hegemony never again attempted to attack human space. Instead, they became one of Earth's most careful allies, having learned firsthand that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who have spent their entire evolutionary history preparing for exactly this moment. Years later, when new species encountered humanity for the first time, they would often ask the same question: how did such a young civilization become so powerful? The answer was always the same. Humans had not become powerful by developing advanced technology or building vast empires. They had become powerful by never forgetting that the galaxy was a dangerous place, and that survival required constant vigilance and the ability to fight when fighting became necessary. The battle near Jupiter became known throughout the galaxy as the day the galaxy changed. It marked the moment when humanity announced its presence, not as another species seeking protection, but as warriors who had been quietly preparing for this moment for thousands of years. The message was clear to everyone who heard the story. Humanity had arrived, and they had brought their warships with them. Ships that looked crude and primitive to those who did not understand their true purpose. Ships built not for show, but for war. And now it was too late for anyone to do anything about it.